Okay guys and girls, welcome to the first series of our chemistry lessons. This is going to cover the new curriculum, the new spec for GCSE Chemistry. Now, I'm going to make a whole series for all of the chemistry, all of the biology and all of the physics. I'm going to start off with chemistry and then physics first. And so let's get on with it really. Here we have in front of us the periodic table. Now, it's important that you understand and make friends with the periodic table because a lot of the answers are going to be in this table. Now, the first thing what I want you guys to be aware of is how the periodic table is organized and why it's organized in such a way. So there's going to be a lot of information, and I suggest you make notes while watching these videos, while watching any of these videos in fact. Okay, so the first thing that you need to be aware of is how it's actually organized. Okay, so there is a stepped line that you need to be aware of. It starts from aluminium, so here's aluminium, Al, and it goes all the way down to polonium, Po. Now, so why do you need to know that? Because this is how the periodic table is actually organized. You see, everything on this side of the periodic table, all of this are metals, every single one of this, and anything on the right hand side of the stepped line, so that's all of this stuff. Let me change that color. That's all of this stuff. Let's go for a green. All of this stuff here is non-metals. Okay, so everything on this side are metals, and anything on this side are non-metals. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to be aware of. Next, what we're going to say is how is everything else arranged. Now, at the top, what you have are group numbers. So you've got group 1, you've got group 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and this is called group 0, but it's sometimes also called group 8, so I'm just going to write 8 there. Now, what you got to be aware of are the groups go down, right? So all of this is group 1, all of this is group 2, all of this is group 3, group 4, 5, 6, 7, and group 8 or group 0, same thing. And what you got to know is the periods go across. Now, a lot of people start off by saying that this is period 1 along here. That's incorrect. Period 1 actually starts from here. So this is period 1, and you've only got two things really in period 1. It's hydrogen and helium. Period 5, everything along here is period 6, and anything along here is period 7. Now, so here we've got two learning points really. Number one is that groups go down, and number two is that periods go across. Now, the way I remember this and the way I get all my students to remember this is periods make a girl go cross. And so because of that, periods are across. So that's how I get my students to remember it. So a little bit more about the periodic table now. As you can see, I was calling out names just based on the letter, and you need to be aware of this. So for example, you need to know that this C stands for carbon, this O is for oxygen, Be is beryllium, Na is sodium, magnesium, and you just need to know that that's the reason why that's arranged like that is so that any scientist from anywhere around the world will be able to know what you're talking about. So if I said CO2, for example, CO2, every scientist around the world would know that I'm talking about carbon with 2 oxygens. And this kind of links to another point. Now let's say I've got lithium here, so I can get rid of the opacity now and get rid of that. Now let's say, for example, I've got lithium, right? Now lithium as itself is an element, right? So what do we mean by an element? Right, so an element is something that consists of only one type of atom. So let's say this is lithium, for example. Now this lithium, I'm just going to draw squares. I'll tell you what, I'll draw it like this. So this lithium here consists of atoms. Each square box I'm representing as an atom. So this is an atom, this is an atom, this is an atom. all these are atoms. So an element is made up of one type of atom only, right? Whereas on the other hand, that's what an element is. It's when you've got one type of atom which makes up the element. So you've got loads of atoms of lithium and they come together to form the element lithium. Next, what we've got is you need to know of compound. So let's say a compound is when you've got two or more elements joined together. So for example, you've got C joined with two oxygens. So you haven't got carbon on its own, it's joined with something else. So this is therefore called a compound. Now let's say for example we've got magnesium on its own. The question is this an element or a compound? Well, you know it's an element because there's just one type of atom. So now let's take an example. Now from the periodic table, I'll bring it back up. We're going to have a look at this here, which is carbon 12. Okay, so I like carbon. I'll talk about carbon a lot. So if you look at the periodic table, what it showed was carbon 12 at the top and 6 at the bottom. But the question is, what do these numbers mean and what do they stand for? Now this top number here is what we call, let's change the colors, let's change it up a bit. It's what we call the atomic mass. And this number here, what we call this one, is the atomic number, or sometimes called number, or sometimes called the proton number. Now I like calling it the proton number, and because for obvious reason, as you find out now. Now what you guys need to kind of think about, if you think about this logically, it does make sense. The atomic mass, right, is the biggest number because it contains all the mass. Doesn't that make sense? And this one here, the atomic number, aka the proton number, shows you the number of protons. So this one shows you the number of protons. Now the question is, what does the atomic mass show? The atomic mass shows the number of protons plus neutrons, right? So that's what it shows. So what this saying is, in total I've got my total protons and neutrons is equal to 12, and here I know that I've got 6 protons. So what you can do from this is you can work out the number of protons, electrons and neutrons. But the question is, how do you do this? Now I call this, for short, I write the pen number, P-E-N, right? So how many protons? Well, to work out the number of protons, you look at the bottom number. So carbon has 6 protons. The number of protons and electrons are equal. So this is 6 electrons, and here to work out the number of neutrons, it's the mass number take away the atomic number. So it's 12 take away 6, which is 6. So carbon has 6 protons, 6 electrons and 6 neutrons. 6, 6, 6. Oh my days. Scary. Not really. Next, so we can go for another one. We could, let's say, go for sulfur. So let's go to our periodic table and see what the top and bottom numbers are for sulfur. So here, sulfur, you guys can't make it out probably, but I can. So sulfur is 32 at the top and 16 at the bottom. So sulfur is 32 at the top, 16 at the bottom. Let's work out our protons, electrons and neutrons. And what we're going to say is, how many protons? Well, you get that from the bottom number, so it's 16. How many electrons? We get it from the bottom number, it's 16. How many neutrons? Well, it's the top number. Take away the bottom number, which is 16 as well. It just so happens to be 16. So not all of them are the same at all times. Okay, so I'll give you an example where that's not the case. Okay, so let's go back on and let's go for lithium. Lithium is over here. So I'm looking at this one here, and it's 7 at the top and 3 at the bottom. So let's go with lithium, which is, change up the color as well. Lithium, which is 7 at the top, 3 at the bottom. To work out the protons, electrons and neutrons, we're going to say okay, so the protons, we get it from the bottom number, so that's 3. There's the same amount of protons as electrons, so that's again 3. And to work out the neutrons, it's 7 take away 3, which is 7,654 neutrons. And that's how you work out the protons, electrons and neutrons. And you can literally do that anyhow you want. So I'm going to give you a task, guys. Pause it, see how you do for magnesium and calcium. So have a look at the periodic table. In fact, I'll tell you what it is so that you don't have an excuse. So magnesium is 24 and 12. You see, guys, the other thing is I'm referring to the periodic table as well because I don't know these off the top of my head. So magnesium is 24 and 12, and calcium, and I'm sure it's 40 and 20, but let's have a look. Calcium is 40 and 20. So calcium is 40 and 20. So I want you guys to pause the video, have a go at doing magnesium first, then calcium, and then we shall then have a look and see if you got it right. So the answer to magnesium, let me just get rid of all of that. The answer for magnesium is 24 and 12. So the pen number for magnesium, the number of protons is 12, bottom number of electron is 12, number of neutrons is 24, take away 12, which is 12. Let's look at calcium. Calcium is 20, no it's not, it's 40 and 20. Now you know it's 40 at the top because that's the mass number, so that's going to be the number that's bigger, which is always at the top. So let's do the pen number for this one. How many protons, we get that from the bottom number, so it's 20. How many electrons, bottom number again. How many neutrons, it's 40, take away 20, which is 20. Well done if you got that right. If you haven't, just go back and review the video and hopefully it'll make more sense. If it doesn't and you're from my school, you can always speak to me or any other teachers. If you're not from my school, just comment below. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the structure of the atom. Okay, so that's kind of our title, if you like. So what we're doing here is we're looking at the structure of the atom. So what you need to know is, let's take lithium because it's an easy one. Now lithium is 7 and 3. And we've already done the pen for this, but we'll do it again as a recap. 3 protons, 3 electrons, and 7 take away 3, which is 4 neutrons. Right, so it's 4 neutrons. So what does this actually mean? What's a proton, what's an electron, what's a neutron, and where are they found in the atom? So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to draw in the protons and the neutrons. So what I've got is I've got 1, 2, 3 protons, right? And I've got 4 neutrons. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so in total I've got 4 neutrons, so I've drawn on my 4, and I've got 3 protons, so I've drawn in 3 here. And how many electrons have I got? Well, I've got 3 of those. So you're going to learn how to draw electron shells later on. At the moment we're just looking at the structure of the atom. So I've got 3, so I've got 1 here, 2 here, and then another 1 outside. Like I said, you will learn how to draw these, but not in this tutorial. This bit here, right, where the protons and neutrons are found, is called the nucleus. So this is the nucleus of the atom. Okay, so, and the nucleus is where the protons and neutrons are found. So I'm just going to write P and N for short, but that's where the protons and neutrons are found. Now, these are the electrons. And the electrons are not found in the nucleus. Electrons are found in the conveniently named electron shells. So you need to know all of that information. Okay, so where are the protons found? Where are the electrons found? And now we're going to go through the charges of each one. So if we were to draw out a table, right, so I'm going to draw. So you should know the way now. So let's take the proton. Now the proton has a mass of 1. Now guys, what you need to remember is mass does not have a plus or a negative sign, so it's just a number. The mass is just a number. The amount of people that get this wrong is horrendous. Okay, the charge on the other hand does. The charge has a plus or a negative number depending on what it is. So the charge, protons have a charge of +1. And where are the protons found? We've just said that earlier. It's in the nucleus. Right, let's do the electron next and stick to the pen order. Now what you can say about the mass of the electron is that it's negligible. I don't know if I spelled that right. I'm awful like this spelling that word, but it's negligible, and what that means is almost zero, and the charge is -1, so it has a -1 charge. And now if you think about what we did earlier, the number of protons and electrons are always the same, so the overall charge of an atom will be 0, because let me go through an example to illustrate this. Okay, so let's do the lithium example. Okay, you can do this with any element, it doesn't matter, but I'll do one that you're familiar with now, which is lithium. So if I write P, E and N, right, so the number of protons are 3 because it's the bottom number, number of electrons is 3, bottom number again, number of neutrons is 7 minus 3, which is 4 neutrons. Now this has how many protons are there? There's 3. The proton has a charge of positive, so that's going to be 3 plus, right? So if we're looking at charge, we're going away from numbers and we're looking at charge here. So this is now charge. So it's got 3 plus, and the each electron has a charge of -1. So this is going to be -3. So what's +3 take away 3? It's 0, right? So overall, an element will have no charge. So lithium overall has no charge because the number of proton and electron are the same and the charges cancel out. But back to the table now, where are electrons found? They are found in the electron shell. Next, what we're going to have is neutrons. Let's have a look at neutrons. Neutrons have a mass of 1. And if you look back at the lithium example, we should know that it's the protons and the neutrons that have the mass, because this is called the mass number. And the mass number, as we already know, consists of protons plus neutrons. So the proton plus the neutron are the things that have the mass. Now, because the overall charge of the element is 0, we know that the neutron must have no charge. So it's got 0 charge because it doesn't affect the overall charge. And where is it found? Well, the neutrons are found in the nucleus. And so you guys need to know this information as well.